Good day buddies. Hope you're all doing great out there, and also hoping you get to see our previous video of how to hunt queen ants. And help you in a way, on catching your future pet ant colonies. Anyways, we've uploaded some shorts showing progress of some of the new colonies we've got from the trip, and some had already a bunch of workers. So, for today's video, we'll be making an ideal, starting ant farm, that we usually use on young ant colonies right after they fill their founding test tubes. Along the build video, we'll also discuss on how to make a classic DIY ant farm worked perfectly. And we'll also share a variety of humidity medias we can use. Before we start, let me also say welcome back buddies. And for those new to the channel, you're also welcome to D-Colony. Let's start by cutting this leftover acrylic sheet from our previous builds into 4 nest covers and a cinder board to make a mold for our classic ant farm. We're also drilling holes for the bolt and nuts. As I have told you before, acrylic glass bends over time, and the best way to prevent that is use bolt and nuts for your acrylic nest covers. I would only advise the use of neodymium magnets if you're using a standard glass for covers, as they don't bend at all. We clipped the acrylic glass and the base cinder board, so the holes will surely aligned. And depending on the size of the bolt head you're using, you need to adjust the hole size, so the bolt head can rest, or lay flat inside later on. And of course, we also drilled holes for entrance and expansion tubings. And this will be the actual size of our ant farm. It's this small buddies, as it's designed as starter ant farm for a few months old tropical ant colonies. We'll just need to assemble the mold now using hot glue. We just need a few spots to join them. If you're not confident you can fit the glass cover exactly within the mold, don't worry, as you can place it now while assembling the mold, so there will be no problem of making it fit. Along with the screws, of course. Just a few spots. And don't forget the 4 top corners, which is the most important part to be glued. Don't also forget to set a second nut on each end of the bolts, as they will serve as the anchors. Anyway, on this build we're not making or using chamber molds like this cinder or styro molds that we used on other builds, as we're doing them manually on this one. If you're interested on builds on using those or how to make those, you can check this vids on the iCard or in the description. A lot has been asking if we can use dirt as substitute for the sand on our DIY builds, and the simple answer buddies is absolutely yes. Just make sure to sterilize it with boiling water for the safety of your pet ants. After drying, we'll just mix it with water to make it muddy, sticky like this. One thing it does better than sand is they really stick together, as in sticky if we make it clay-like, allowing us to shape the chamber we desire easier, and much faster. Especially if we're doing it manually like this. Just be careful not to wet the dirt too much, as it get difficult to manage, as they'll slowly spread flat. But in case you did, an easy remedy for that is just top it with dry dirt. Just enough to make them stick together like crazy. Anyway, make sure this humidity chamber is much deeper than the nesting chambers. If you can make it double the depth, the better. Next, we'll just cut some tubings for the entrance and expansion holes. We'll just block it with moist tissue paper. And merge them with the chambers we made using dirt. As you'd expect with dirt chambers, they'll stay on place like a welded metal. Sticky AF. For the concrete, we'll use tile grout as usual. I'm loving the orange color nest lately, so we're mixing red and yellow again this time. I'll put the mixture ratio on the screen. On how much water, it depends on how thick you want it. I like it on a toothpaste-like consistency most of the time. But that may change based on what we're building. We can just pour it directly on top of the dirt chambers, as they're sturdy and sticky enough to take the pressure. It would level itself in time, but I help a little as we've made it this thick anyway. We also made another one using red sand, which usually used in fish tank substrates. It's made of crushed lava rocks, so it's basically safe. One disadvantage of using this is it's harder to shape, as they don't stick together like a normal sand does. We spent twice the time on making it, compared to the dirt one. And one wrong move you'll easily destroy what you just made, so be extra careful if you ever decided to use it on the future. We can't just pour the grout directly, as the chamber is too loose and they can get flushed together on one side. So I decided to use a spoon on setting the grout on this one, until I covered all the chambers. Anyway, we also made two using the regular sand. We can basically use a lot of different substrate for molding and farm chambers, just make sure to sterilize it if you're unsure about the safety of the material. We just let these things dry for 2 days, and here are the outcomes. We'll be using them on our new pet ant colonies, so stay tuned. We also have a fifth and slightly bigger one here, which is the first one we made using dirt on this video. We'll just remove this glass protective cover. So, this is the one we made with the red sand. And we made 2 with fine sand, and 2 with dirt chambers. We'll loosen the bolts. Remove the glass. Then clear the chambers. We can actually skip this, and just let the ants to dig the chambers. But the downside is the view won't be clear as we'd like, as the ants won't clear every debris inside. And once you've checked on them a couple of times, they'll be using those remaining debris to cover the glass. So, it's better to do it this way. Anyway, what you should take note, buddies, is on how to water a classic DIY ant farm like this one for it to work properly. Which we will cover a little bit later, when we're on the humidity chamber. For now, let me just rinse all of this with water quickly. I usually roughly brush the chambers under running water, buddies, to clear all the debris. But be careful not to do that on a dirted chambers, especially if you want the dirt effect of the chamber walls. As they'll be as clean as this, as dirt don't really stick with the grout and comes off if roughly brushed. On this one, I used just my fingers on rinsing it with water so it still have its dirted walls. Unlike the dirt, the chambers made with sand can be roughly brushed but will still have lots of sand intact on the chamber walls. That a bonus as they look really good in there, main reason why I choose to use sand all the time. They look cool even after heavy cleaning, and reusing an ant nest. And here's the one with the red lava sand. They turned out really awesome. If we made the grout a little bit more red to match the crushed lava rocks color, it would be perfect. I can't help with the idea. I guess I'm making one soon for the other colonies. It's now time to talk about the humidity chamber, and how to make it work perfectly on DIY ant farms. First, we need to set it up correctly. Part of it was the one I told you earlier on the vid, to make the humidity chamber deeper than the nesting chambers. And twice the depth if you can manage. Next, is setting up the media the right way. We're featuring different things here, but let's go with the sponge first. Which is the most common media used in ant farms. The best sponge to use is the one with lower PPI. A coarse sponge, for example, with 20 to 30 ppi will work great as they're quicker to absorb water. And before cutting the sponge, it needs to be moist as it will be in shrink state when dried. The right size of sponge should be 30 to 50% less than the size of your humidity chamber. Don't just force to stick a large sponge like this on the chamber, just because you can force it to fit. As that sponge won't be able to retain much moisture in the end, and you shouldn't allow it to kiss their glass. So, you need to cut it to the right size to prevent that from happening. As to make it function right, you need that space present between the glass and the humidity media. You will use that space to prevent the water to make contact with the glass, as if it reaches the glass the water will spread quickly around the whole nest. You don't want that to happen, as you need to maintain one side of the nest drier and less humid than the other. If you've done this mistake, ants will tend to stay near the entrance of the nest, as the whole ant farm will have the same humidity all over. Some dry-loving species will even nest on the entrance tubing, or even on the outworld. In short, do the watering slowly. Just wet the sponge from time to time, and let it distribute the extra moisture on the walls that surrounds it, and not on the whole nest. Just look at the color of the grout around the sponge we just watered, it's darker. A sign that the moisture is being held in here, and just slowly being distributed at nearby walls. This will make the inner chamber moist, and more humid compared to the outer parts. Anyway, we can use many other things as media in the humidity chamber bodies, like sand. In using sand, we're not going to fill it to the brim, for the same exact reason with the sponge. You can also use cotton for it, and like the first two, don't let it reach the top. Don't make it too compact either, so it can absorb water easier. Another thing we can use sure is sphagnum moss, cause like there, others it can also retain water well. Before putting the glass covers back, let's mark it and drill holes for watering, of course. I would also advise buddies that you should allow the nest to dry for a whole week before putting back the glass cover. This is to let the chemicals in the mixture to fully set, specially do it for more sensitive ant species. So with that reason, keep on mind to always make your DIY ant farms in advance, as it's not advisable to use them right away. We'll use 4mm drinking straw, and 4mm silicone plug to prevent water evaporation outside the nest. Anyway, after filming I will remove the glass, to let it fully set for a week, buddies. As we'll need to ready them for our young new ant colonies. Stay tuned to find out whose colony will conquer our new creations and also some other previous builds which still vacant. And before we end the video, if this one reaches 1,000 likes in a month, we'll be giving away DIY ant farms like this. Make it happen, buddies, by sharing, so more people can like it. I just hope you have learned something from this video, guys. Be a genie for the first time, by granting my wish and tapping the like and share button, that would help a lot. This is D Colony, saying goodbye for now, but hoping to see you on my next videos.